What is going on, guys? It's Modded Warfare here. Welcome to PS4 Jailbreak Tutorials Episode 1. In this episode, I'm going to be showing you guys how to jailbreak your PS4 from start to finish on the latest jailbreakable firmware for the PS4. Now, this is the start of a new series of tutorials I'm starting on my channel, showing you guys how to take full advantage of your jailbroken PS4. So following this episode, future episodes will cover things like how to install the jailbreak offline, installing useful homebrew and third-party apps on your PS4, installing PS4 games, DLC and updates, installing PS1 and PS2 games with a built-in emulator, installing homebrew emulators, modding your games with trainers, mod menus, converting PC mods to run on the PS4 version of the games, and also running Linux on the PS4 to use it like a PC, and lots more. I'll be covering all the basics and beyond in this series. But before we can get to any of that stuff, we have to first jailbreak the PS4 in the first place. So that's what this first episode is all about, so let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do when you fire up your PS4 is go into the settings menu and scroll down to the network settings and uncheck the box to connect to the internet. And that is to stop the PS4 from trying to download any system software updates right now. First of all, if you go into the settings menu and you scroll down to system and system information, you've got your system software version, as you can see, minus 7.02. And that is your firmware version. That number right there is your firmware version. So what you need to do is make sure that that firmware version is the same as the one that's in the title of the video or lower. So in the title of the video, it will say 7.55 or lower right now, because currently when I'm recording this video, 7.55 is the latest jailbreakable firmware version. However, I will update the title when new jailbreaks come out for higher firmware versions. So if we ever get an 8.00 or an 8.03 jailbreak in future, then I'll update the title to say 8.00 or lower or 8.03 or lower. But currently, as of when I'm recording, 7.55 is the latest jailbreakable firmware, and it's a new jailbreak that was just released. So I need to make sure that my system software version here is 7.55 or lower. If it's higher than 7.55, there's currently no way of downgrading, so you'll unfortunately have to wait for a new jailbreak to come out for your firmware version if you've updated past the version that's in the title. So as long as you're on 7.55 or lower, or whatever the title of the video says the latest firmware is for jailbreaks or lower, then you are good to go. So all you have to do is go back to the system settings and go down to automatic downloads and make sure you uncheck all the checkboxes in this menu. And that is just a precaution to help us prevent downloading the latest firmware version from PSN by accident, which a lot of people can do, which will update your firmware version to the latest firmware, and then it will no longer be jailbreakable. So you want to make sure you uncheck all of these boxes as a precaution. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to update your system software version to 7.55. So if you're already on 7.55, there'll be timestamps in the description and also on screen right now that you can go to skip this section of the video if you're already on 7.55. If, however, you're on a lower firmware than 7.55, then continue watching here so I can show you how to update your firmware to 7.55 so that you will be on the correct firmware version to do the jailbreak on. Okay, so to update your firmware version to 7.55 or whatever the latest jailbreakable firmware is by the time you're watching this video, then what we're going to do first of all is we're going to need to get a USB drive, because we're going to put the firmware version we want to update to on a USB drive and we can install it that way, rather than installing the latest firmware from PSN, which will be too high. So what we're going to do is switch over to the computer. So switching over to the computer, there's a few different sites you can go to download the firmware version. There's this one here on darksoftware.xyz. You do need an account in order to download the file on this one. But if you head into the retail firmware list and scroll down to the bottom, you can just select 7.55 and download it. The other website is this one right here. And as you can see, it goes straight here to the firmwares. Here's 7.55. Again, 7.55 or whatever the firmware version is in the title of the video. That's the one you want to download. So click the link and download the file. Once you have the file downloaded here, we're then going to put that on a USB drive. Now you need to make sure that the USB drive you're using is formatted in either exFAT format or FAT32 format. And you can tell by right clicking on the drive, going down to properties and making sure the file system says exFAT or FAT32. If it's something else like ext something or ntfs, then you're going to want to back up any data that's on the drive and then reformat it by right-clicking, going to Format, and then selecting from the file system exFAT or FAT32, and then clicking Start, which will reformat it in the correct format. Once you've done that, we're going to create a few folders in the root of the USB drive. The first one is just going to be called PS4 in uppercase characters. Then inside that folder, you're going to create another folder called Update, also in uppercase characters. And then inside that folder, you're going to copy the update file you downloaded for 7.55 or whatever the latest jailbreak firmware is. And you're going to copy it here into this folder. So just make sure that the file name is PS4 Update.pup in uppercase characters. This is very important that you have the file structure correctly, because if anything is in the wrong format or in the wrong place, then the update's not going to show up on your PS4. So just make sure you have the file structure correct. So you've got your USB drive, then the PS4 folder, then inside that you've got the update folder, and inside that you have the update file named PS4 Update.pup, and they're all in uppercase characters. Once you've done that, you can then eject the drive and plug it into your PS4. Okay, so now that we're back on the PS4, now we can just go into System Software Update in the settings. And as you can see, it says the following version of the system software is available, 7.55. That's the one it's detecting on our USB drive. Make sure before you click next that the version is correct, that it's the same version number that is in the title of the video, which right now is 7.55, but could be a higher update in future. So just make sure that the version number is correct. So 7.55 in this case, and we can click next and continue. Now you saw it came up with that error message initially. If that happens, just go back into System Software Update, click next again. And as you can see, the second time here, it worked. So once we've done that, we can click Update and start doing the system update to 7.55. Now this will take a little while to complete. It will also restart your PS4, possibly a couple of times. Okay, so now we have the 7.55 update installed, so we can go into Settings, go back down to System Information just to check, and as you can see, we are on 7.55. Okay, so now that we are on the latest jailbreakable firmware version, there's a few extra things we want to set up just to make sure that we don't accidentally download the latest firmware in future and then not have access to the jailbreak. So we're going to set up our internet settings. So if we go back into the settings menu, we go into Network, we go to set up an internet connection. So connect to internet first, then set up an internet connection, select whichever method you normally use, Wi-Fi or LAN cable. And then instead of doing an easy setup, we're going to do a custom setup. And we're going to basically keep everything the same as normal. The only difference is the DNS settings. So we're going to do automatic IP, do not specify DHCP. We are going to do a manual DNS setup. And in the DNS settings for the primary DNS, you're going to want to put in 165.227.83.145 as the primary DNS. And then for the secondary DNS, we're going to put in 192.241.221.79. So enter those two IP addresses there in the DNS settings and then click next. Then we're going to do automatic MTU, do not specify a proxy, and there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to run the user guide. And what should happen if you set those DNS addresses correctly is it should redirect you to this exploit host instead of taking you to the normal user guide. So if it does this, then it means you have the DNS settings set up correctly and it is working. So those DNS addresses have two functions. One of them is to redirect your user guide to an exploit host so you can load the jailbreak from here. Just in case you don't have the web browser app on your PS4, you can load the jailbreak this way. And secondly, it blocks all connections to Sony servers so that you won't constantly be getting prompted to do an update from PSN every time you launch a game or start up your PS4. So now that we've done that, we are basically ready to use the jailbreak now. So you can load the exploit via the user guide or through the internet browser app by going to one of those same IP addresses we put in as our DNS settings, and that will take us to the same exploit host that we can run the jailbreak from. Now, this one hasn't been updated to support the latest jailbreak yet, so I'm not going to be using this one, but by the time you're watching this video, it probably will have been updated. But there's lots of other exploit hosts to choose from. You've got this one here. You've also got the wolfgames.github.io right here. And you also have this one as well. I'm going to use this one in this video to, they're all hosting the same jailbreak, just with a different look and feel to the website, but they're all essentially the same thing. So again, I'll link them all in the description of the video. So the main jailbreak itself is called Mira. So that is the thing that will actually jailbreak your PS4. There's also another payload called Hen, which stands for Homebrew Enabler, which is also pretty much the same kind of thing. It will also jailbreak the PS4. So whether you run Hen or Mira, that's what you want to run to jailbreak the system. Preferably Mira if you have the option. And all of these other payloads here use the same jailbreak to do different things. So you've got an FTP payload, the dumper payload allows you to dump and decrypt your PS4 games and stuff. So before we run the Mira payload, the first payload we're going to run is the Disable Updates payload, which is right here. So this will just stop any system updates from being downloaded to the hard drive. So it will still download a system update, but when it gets to 100%, it will fail to copy it to the hard drive, which will prevent you from accidentally installing it. So that's the first payload that we're going to run. Now, before you run these payloads, what we're going to do is close window. We're going to hit the options button. You're going to delete any other, pages here that we're not using. Then we're going to go to the browsing history by hitting the options button, going to browsing history, hitting options and clear your browser history. And then do the same thing, hit the options and go to settings this time and delete your cookies and you clear your website data, and also uncheck the box to allow cookies in the first place. So that will just free up the browser's memory so that we have a better chance of loading the jailbreak successfully. The second thing we're going to do is go back onto your exploit host, and what you should notice when you first go on here is it will install an offline cache. So you can see there at the top it says it's installing the offline cache, and that is just caching the whole website and all the payloads in the browser, so that you have a local copy of the website saved, so that you'll then be able to run the local copy instead of trying to run the jailbreak from a server online on the internet, which will also give you a better chance of loading it successfully. So not all hosts will automatically cache the website like this one. Some of them will have an option somewhere to cache the website, so just select that option to start the caching process. The best way to get it to run the cached version is to actually turn off your internet once it's cached the website. So if we go into the settings, go to network, uncheck the box to connect to the internet, then go back on the site. And this time, as you can see, it loaded much faster. Even though we're not connected to the internet, it still loads the website because it's cached it in the browser. So this is how we want to run it to get the best chance of loading the jailbreak successfully. So the first payload, like I said, is the Disable Updates payload. So we're going to run this and give it a try here. So this is the message that you're going to see a lot when loading the jailbreak. There's not enough free system memory, so we click OK, and that just refreshes and tries to load it again. And again, this will happen multiple times. You'll have to keep clicking OK every time it pops up, just like that, until it eventually loads. Now, it's pretty much luck of the draw here. Sometimes it will work first time. Sometimes it will take 2 or 3 out of memory errors. Sometimes it might take 10 or 20 of these error messages before it actually loads. Now, if you're sitting here for 3 or 4 minutes and it's still not loading, then sure, at that point, you should probably, restart your PS4, clear all of your cookies, recache the website in the browser again, and then try again if it's taking that many attempts, because it shouldn't really take that many attempts, but it can do sometimes. So you just have to keep clicking OK until it eventually loads the exploit. So as you can see here, it got a little bit further that time, so that's a good sign. And now we've got this corrupted successfully, which is also a good sign that it might actually load this time. So now we're just waiting for the payload to load, which can take anything from 5 to 10 seconds. And in this case, it completely failed and I have to reboot my PS4. This happens sometimes with the jailbreaks. Again, jailbreaks are not entirely stable, so this is something you are going to run into fairly often. It may just crash the PS4 completely, in which case you just have to turn it back on and give it another try. Okay, so running it again a second time, as you can see, this time it was successful. So we got the little notification in the top left-hand corner. That's what you're looking for. That's how you know it's actually worked, is when you get the notifications popping up in the top left-hand corner. That means that it is all working. So now what we can do is close the internet browser. Okay, so we'll go back on the internet browser. Before we load the next payload, we'll just clear our browsing history. So we're going to go back on the website, and then we're going to run the next payload, which I would recommend, which is the history blocker. One of the issues when you're loading a payload, it didn't happen with this one, but it can happen, is when you load a payload, or if it fails, it doesn't load the payload successfully, it crashes and you have to reboot. Then the next time you open the browser, it will try and load the last page that you were on. And the last page that you were on was trying to load an exploit, was trying to load the Disable Updates payload, for example. It starts trying to load that payload again, which is not the one you want to run because we've already ran that payload. So you have to quickly hit the options button and close window before it starts trying to execute the exploit again. So to stop that from happening, that is why we run the history blocker. The history blocker will just stop it from going to the last page that you were on when you open the browser. So it will just take you back to the normal landing page. So that's the next payload that you want to run, is the history blocker, once you've run the Disable Updates payload. So there we go, launching payload, running history blocker, and that should be it. So history blocker enabled, run the payload again to disable. So there you go. So you can run the history blocker again to turn it off. You can run the enable updates payload if you ever want to re-enable the updates again. There is the enable updates payload right here. So you can always reverse what you've done if you wish. But you won't have to run those payloads again now. Now that you've ran them once, you're all good. So we're all good with that. So all we have to do now is run the actual main jailbreak itself, which is Mira for 7.55. If you don't have the option for Mira, then run Hen instead, Homebrew Enabler. Preferably Mira though, if you have the option. So we're going to run Mira for 7.55 now. Okay, so the difference with Mira is that when it runs, it typically does this kind of soft reboot. So it looks like it's crashed, but it's not actually crashed. All it's doing is doing this kind of soft reboot where you'll get a black screen for a few seconds and then it should come back on. There we go. And we now have Mira running. So congratulations, you've basically now got your PS4 jailbroken. So you might be wondering, how is it jailbroken? It looks exactly the same as before. But if you go into the settings menu and you scroll down to the bottom, you'll now have this debug settings option in here. And the only thing we really care about in here is the package installer, which is inside game. So if you go into game, you have package installer, and this is what you use to install all games, apps, DLC, updates, all that stuff, emulators, homebrew apps. They're all installed via the package installer. And it's very similar to, APK files on Android. If an app's not available in the Google Play Store on Android, you can download the APK file for it and install it manually. That's essentially the same thing here. So instead of installing something from the PSN store, you can download package files, which are the equivalent to APK files for Android. And you download package files, put them on a USB drive, and you can then install them via the package installer. So it kind of gives you this backdoor access to install apps onto the PS4. So let me just give you guys a quick example of how to do that. So on the computer, I've got some package files already downloaded. So all of your games and apps are package files. So media apps like the Netflix app and Amazon Prime app, PS4 games, DLC, updates, even PS1 and PS2 games that can run through the emulator, homebrew apps, which are third-party apps made by independent developers. They all come in package files, .pkg files. And you can use a program called PS4 Package Viewer, which I'll link in the description. You can use this file to kind of open the package files and view information about them or try and extract the contents. Now, one thing you need to know is that there are two different types of package files. There's retail package files and fake package files. So when I open this one up here, this Minecraft version here, you can see it says game and then it says fake in brackets. So fake package files are the package files that you can run on a jailbroken PS4. Retail package files are the same package files that you would download from Sony. So those are official package files from Sony, and they cannot be ran on a PS4 jailbreak with Mira or Hen. They will not run because those package files are encrypted, so you're not going to be able to run those. So essentially, when you're downloading package files for a jailbreak, you just need to make sure that it's the fake package version of a game or an app that you're downloading rather than the retail version. But again, I'll be explaining all of that stuff in future episodes in the series, so check the playlist in the description because every few days I'll upload a new episode to the series and I'll be covering stuff like installing homebrew apps and PS4 games, DLC updates, converting retail package files to fake package files, and lots of other stuff as well. So all of that will be covered in future in more detail. So definitely check back for future episodes coming out very soon. So yeah, anyway, once you have some package files though, just as an example here, all we're going to do is put them on the root of a USB drive. So don't put them inside any folders, just put them in the root of the USB. And of course the USB has to be formatted in exFAT format. So just to show you right there. So I can eject the USB and now plug it into the PS4 now that we have the files on there. And now that I've plugged the USB drive with the package files on them into the PS4, when I go on the package installer now, you can see they all show up and I can just hit install all and that will install all of those package files. And that, as you can see right there, that is backdoor access to install third-party apps and stuff onto your PS4 without going through the store or needing to be connected to PSN to install any of this stuff. Okay, so we now have them all installed, and as you can see, when I go back to the home screen, everything is now installed. And also, of course, you've got Minecraft, of course, which is a PS4 game, which I'm able to just run no problem here on the PS4, as you can see, loaded up no problem. Yeah, guys, so that is basically it. That's how you install the apps onto your PS4. So one of the things that you need to bear in mind is that this jailbreak is not permanent. It is only temporary. So when you run Mira, when you next reboot the PS4, you'll have to run it again. So when I say it's temporary, obviously the disable updates payload that we ran, that does a permanent change on the hard drive, so that's permanent. The history blocker payload is also permanent, but the hen payload and the Mira payload, the ones that actually allow us to install these games and run these games, those are not permanent. So when you restart the PS4, as I'll show you here, they will no longer be runnable until you load the Mira payload again. So you will not lose any package files that you've already installed when you reboot the PS4. As you can see, they're still all on here, they're still installed. They're just showing up with the padlock symbol now. So when you try and run them, you'll just get this error message saying that you need to, go to the store to buy the content. So it just will not let you actually run any of the apps, but they are still installed. But to fix that, all you have to do is just go back onto your exploit host and then just run Mira again. And once it runs successfully, you'll then have the debug settings back and you'll be able to run all of the apps that you installed previously. So that's the only issue with this kind of jailbreak, is that you have to run the exploit every time you reboot the PS4. Okay, so now that Mira is now running again, all of the games no longer have the padlock symbol. They're all runnable. As you can see here, I can run Minecraft again and it is all working. Unfortunately, that is just the way this jailbreak works. You have to run Mira or hen again every time you reboot the PS4 in order to load it. Sometimes it will only take a few seconds to load, sometimes it might take a minute or so, but that's just the way this jailbreak is. But anyway, that is basically it, guys. That's how you fully jailbreak your PS4 from start to finish on the latest jailbreakable firmware. Now, please stay tuned for my future videos in this series. Like I say, there'll be a playlist in the description. It'll be linked in the cards in the top right and at the end of the video here. Pretty much everything that you can do with a jailbroken PS4 I will be covering at some point in this series. So check out the playlist link in the description for future episodes when I upload them. So yeah, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next episode.